Canada is wanting to send Jordan Peterson to re-education training, and if he doesn't go, they're going to take away his clinical license. But here's what Jordan Peterson has to say. No, Jordan Peterson isn't on trial. Freedom of speech is. Welcome back, my freedom-loving friend, to the JP Reacts channel, where, amongst other things, we like to call out the lies, hypocrisy, and corruption of tyrants. There's nothing more tyrannical than taking away freedom of speech. And this issue with Jordan Peterson, it's monumental, in my opinion. It's something, this issue with him, it represents a symbol, a beacon for all of us who care about freedom of speech. Before I get into the rather intriguing details of this case, I want to point out, freedom of speech is not just an American thing, and Jordan Peterson being Canadian, nor is it just a Canadian thing. In the 1940s, following World War II and the atrocities of the Nazis, they asked, how can we prevent this kind of human rights violations from ever happening again? So they formed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Freedom of speech, they declared, is a universal human right. Yes, it's a United States constitutional right, but they also declared this is a universal human right, as it should be. So freedom of speech, there's no question. There's people, there's agencies, there's corporations, there's globalists who don't want you to have freedom of speech. Why? We can speculate, and speculate I will do. Taking away freedom of speech means you're able to control the people more. You're able to control their mind because they can't express their mind. Therefore, you're able to facilitate more control over individuals physically. Here's the problem. Jordan Peterson isn't very controllable. We're going to see that. So let's take a look at the details of this case. So we'll pull some information from this New York Post article titled "Psychologist Jordan Peterson Could Lose License If He Refuses Social Media Re-Education." And this story is everywhere that likes to broadcast actual news. So specifically, the College of Psychologists of Ontario, which is the governing body that Jordan Peterson has his psychological license from, is threatening to take away his license if he doesn't attend re-education training. Sounds a little dystopian, because it is. What the College of Psychologists of Ontario, their problem with Jordan Peterson is he speaks his mind. He doesn't go along with the narrative. I'm going to speculate for a second. The Canadian government has gotten incredibly leftist, incredibly tyrannical. Shout out Justin Trudeau. We see you, brother. So there's no question a overarching government, of course, has governing control over smaller regulating bodies. And here the College of Psychologists of Ontario, they use too many of the words ofs in that title. It confuses me. There's no question that the Canadian government would have some level of control and influence on this College of Psychologists of Ontario. Jordan Peterson has been calling out Justin Trudeau, the tyrannical behavior in Canada, and representing freedom of speech from the get-go handful of years ago. He was calling out, hey, Canadian government, you're telling us we have to use compelled speech and use other people's pronouns when we don't even know what their pronouns are. And if we do know, we still have to use them. That's compelled speech. He's a man of principle. He's a man of freedom. Freedom's one of his principles, apparently. From a handful of years ago, he was saying no to the Canadian government and speaking out loudly against it. And then more recently, in COVID times, he's been calling out the tyrannical behavior. He was supportive of the Canadian truckers' freedom convoy. Canadian government didn't like that. So the speculation is Canadian government has put pressure on the regulating body of psychologists that have issued the license for Jordan Peterson because they don't like what he's saying on social media, podcasts. They just flat out don't like what he's saying wherever he's saying it. So they say, that's a problem. You need to go to re-education training where we'll teach you how to speak properly on social media. We'll teach you the approved language. But here's the problem. Jordan Peterson says no. Jordan Peterson, based on what he says, is willing to lose his license in order to stand on the principle of doing what's right and being what's right. Here's a big lesson that I think we can all draw inspiration from. with regard to Jordan Peterson. He stands to lose something, and he's willing to lose it. Because when there's any level of tyranny, whether it's a relationship, a licensing body, or a government, anytime there's a level of tyranny, they will use fear to try to derive obedience. You get out of line, they'll use fear to get you back in line. That's the only way tyranny can be successful. But when people refuse to comply, when they're willing to lose that which can be taken away, they are in fact a free person. They are in fact, in my opinion, strongly contributing to the movement of freedom. So this principle that Jordan Peterson is standing on, for me, the example says, I'm willing to lose what's necessary in order to stay free. And in Jordan Peterson's example, he's got over 15 million followers across social media. His sacrifice is also for the benefit of his followers. Why? Because anybody who follows him will be inspired by his example. So he's not only willing to lose things, his license, he spent years in school earning and years practicing on, not only willing to lose that to stand up for what's right, he's willing to lose that for everybody else because everybody else is watching him. What example is he going to set? It's almost like forgive me, I don't mean to sound sacrilegious. It's an archetype of Jesus Christ, being willing to die for the sins of other people, be sacrificed for the good of the all. And in my opinion, he's doing that. But there's another powerful lesson also that I think Jordan Peterson is showing us. The less dependent we are on the centralized systems, licensing bodies in this case, but whatever the centralized systems are, food, water, shelter, protection, financial systems, the more decentralized we are, the less dependent we are on them, the more free we are. The more immune to tyrannical obedience we are. So in Jordan Peterson's case, losing his license, it's a sacrifice, but it probably doesn't mean too much to him. Why? Because he's become bigger than that. He doesn't need to rely on that. In fact, from what I've studied, Jordan Peterson hasn't worked with individual patients and clients since 2017. So I would imagine he wants to keep his license because he earned it. And he's done, in truth, nothing wrong to violate the license. But he's not dependent on the license. Therefore, he's not dependent on the centralized system from which the license is granted. He's what Brett Weinstein is called, he's achieved escape velocity, where he's not dependent on the globalists, the tyrannical government, Justin Trudeau, the College of Psychiatrists of Ontario. He's escaped them. In other words, he's become decentralized. He's got his own followers. He does speaking tours where he sells out theaters all across the world. And nobody is doing that for him other than him. And of course, the good grace of his amazing followers. So I think that that's a powerful example, not relatable in the sense of, hey, everybody has 15 million followers. But for me, the relatable, powerful example is the more you and I strive to achieve decentralization in our lives. For instance, if our job is threatened, if you don't comply with our mandates, you're out of a job. Well, what happens if we don't need that job? Your social credit score is getting dinged. You better behave or no more food for you. Well, what happens if we don't need their food? We are in fact free. We're not enslaved in this system where we get compelled to be obedient in order to have a job, finances, food. Now, all of this is easier said than done. It'd be great if you could just take a pill that says, I'm decentralized now. I'm fully independent on my finances, food, shelter, protection, all the things. Way more challenging than it is to say. But to me, the inspiration of this beautiful example of Jordan Peterson standing on principle and what's right is the more you and I strive to be decentralized, less reliant on governments and what they can take away, truly the more free we are. If it came to it and someone said, JP, you better comply or your family's going to starve. As freedom loving as I am, I'm not going to let my family starve. I would find myself complying. I wouldn't feel good about it, but it would probably feel better, at least in the short term, than letting my family starve. But if they came to me and now I'm growing some of my own food, long ways to go, but growing some of my own food. So if someone said, JP, you better comply or we're not going to let you have food anymore, I'd be like, piss off. I'm going to be free. I'm not abandoning my freedom of speech. I'm taking care of myself. So financially, food, shelter, all of our livelihoods, both for our health, our living being, and finances, the more we can strive to be decentralized, the more free we truly are, and the less susceptible we are to tyranny that tries to drive us into obedience. And in this case, Jordan Peterson, it's hilarious. They want one of the most well-educated people I have ever seen speak. They want him to go to the re-education camp. Could you imagine? Could you imagine being the freaking instructor in this camp where now you're instructing someone how to think who is objectively way smarter than you? I kind of hope Jordan Peterson goes to the re-education camp and films it, because it'd be pretty hilarious. But they would do nothing but try to make him dumber, try to make him less connected to his own critical thinking, disconnected from its principles, and weaker psychologically, if not physically. So, dear freedom lovers, I'm grateful this is happening to Jordan Peterson. Not because I like the tyranny, not because I like the condescending insult to human intelligence that is a re-education training, not because I like their tyrannical threat of, we'll take your license away if you don't comply. It's absolute tyranny. I don't like it. But I'm grateful this is happening to Jordan Peterson. Why? Because millions of people are getting a beautiful, potent example of how to actually be brave when it's tough. Because it's easy to be a brave freedom fighter when it's easy. When there's no threat against us, things going on in the world, but a lot of it's kind of pretty external to us in our personal lives. Easy to be a brave freedom fighter there. But Jordan Peterson is now much deeper in the heat of the fire. And we're getting to see how a true freedom warrior responds. I am willing to lose what you're threatening to take away. I will piss on the dreams of tyrants with my liberty. It's a beautiful example. I'm inspired to be an even more bold freedom lover. And hopefully that translates whenever the fire's hot for me. Hopefully it translates to me standing on my principles no matter what. That's something I think we can all draw inspiration from. So my hat's off to Jordan Peterson. I'll continue to follow this story, see what happens. But for now, I'm inspired. And also, as we conclude this video, if you are a man, especially a man who likes sex, stay tuned for a word from our sponsor, Joy Mode. Hey guys, have you ever wanted a sketchy 12-hour erection that you can't get rid of without a trip to the hospital? Well, if so, Joy Mode isn't for you. Joy Mode is a sexual performance booster made from all natural ingredients, unlike sketchy pills you get from a gas station or prescription medications that can have absolutely gnarly side effects. This year, in breakthroughs in the field of biology, we found out that men have penises and they use them to have sex. And quite honestly, I'm a fan of that, which makes me a fan of Joy Mode. Whether you're happy or unhappy with your sex life, why not make it better? And Joy Mode helps you do it. It's like pre-workout, but for sex. That's the best part. And the second best part is because Joy Mode is all natural, it helps improve your sexual performance without any of the nasty side effects you get from sketchy gas station pills and prescription medication. The Joy Mode Sexual Performance Booster is specifically designed to enhance erection quality, firmness, and sex drive. Let me pause real quick and untuck my shirt, if you know what I mean. Joy Mode's all natural ingredients were formulated by best-in-class scientists and biochemists. The science of erection quality. I like what those people are doing with their lives. Do you want to spice things up in the bedroom and boost your sexual performance and do it naturally without prescription drugs? Well, we have a special offer for the JP audience. Just go to usejoymode.com/JP and at checkout enter JP for 20% off your first order. That's usejoymode.com/JP for 20% off. Thanks, Joy Mode.